Welcome to this edition of Platform. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. The United Nations Disaster Estimates noted that between 1994 and 2003, at least 2.5 billion people were killed by the effects of disasters worldwide, while about 478,000 people were killed through natural disasters such as hurricane, earthquakes, and floods. While Nigeria witnesses and records the occurrences of natural disasters, the internal crisis, which manifests in the form of ethno-religious crisis or the quest for resource control, are threats that are becoming more frequent in Nigeria, and the authorities are battling to contain them. This edition of Platform focuses on disaster management in Nigeria with one of the leading disaster management agencies, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. The Director General, NEMA, Mustafa Maihaja, was appointed NEMA's Director General and Chief Executive in April 2017. Since his appointment, he has handled several disasters that occurred in Nigeria, be it natural or ethno-religious in nature. How has it been, and what are the logistical, funding, legal or regulatory challenges of NEMA? Malam Mustafa Maihaja, Director General NEMA, welcome to Platform.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure being in this platform today.
As usual, my panelists are here. We have a very, very versatile reporter who has been covering the disaster sector for the NTA in person of Ilyasu Ali Yakubu.
Good evening, viewer.
Also here, of course, is our regular panelist, Ruth Aguele.
Thank you.
With the NTA Current Affairs Unit, one of our news anchors, and also assistant producer of this program. Director General NEMA, thank you once again for coming, and you're welcome to Platform. Let's begin from the basics. What will you say are the types of disasters that occur in Nigeria?
Well, first and foremost, there are several disasters, but one ahead of all is flood disasters. What follows also emergencies of communal clash, farmers' health crisis, take a greater toll of lives of Nigeria in the past 2 years I have been in this office. Of course, there are other smaller disasters, building collapse, epidemics like cholera, and smaller ones more available in this country or obtainable in this country.
So if these are the disasters that occur here, we don't have hurricanes, we only have flooding. And NEMA is charged with the mandate to coordinate and manage disaster efforts by all stakeholders. The act establishing NEMA, the Act of National Assembly of 1999, gave you all that mandate. How has the coordination been so far?
Well, I must acknowledge the fact that we have a very robust structure in place that are backed by several policies which guide the operations and responses of National Emergency Management Agency at all times. However, my observation since I came was all that structure and the policies that have been in place were not properly brought into use effectively. One thing I did was to ensure that the structures is made to work and to work effectively and efficiently. This really became practical in 2018, where we have more or less even greater disaster consequences than 2012. In 2012. So the structures are there, the policies are there, but they were never used properly.
So what did you do now to make sure it is being used?
Well, before then, actually there are other serious challenges that I met on ground. One, inappropriate remuneration packages of the staff, social and moral decadence in our system, which is very known to all, lack of political will in the past administration to confront disasters, operational inadequacies, and structural defects within NEMA itself. What I mean by structural defects, there are certain departments that did not exist when I came, which really could result in inefficiency, which we now brought them in. So having seen that, we worked on that. We have internal structures well regularized and streamlined. We started with establishment of a committee to look into the condition of service of NEMA, which it went through several processes of approval, and I believe government is considering the approval, final approval of it in terms of cost. The operational structures has been approved. The other related indices that will make it work has been approved, but the cost element requires high-level approval, which we are waiting now. Also, we make sure that we get the staffs to work as a team, and they have been working as a team. We had some little challenges because of the issue of inappropriate remuneration package, but eventually we talk to them, we understand with them, they understand what we are doing, they understand what government is up to, so that will soon be laid to rest, and I believe very soon we'll solve that problem. So when I came, I also met only 4,600,000 in the account with a liability of 2.7 billion naira. We had to adjust our belt. We tell everyone that all form of leakages must be blocked, excesses has to be stopped. This is difficult to the staffs, but we have their understanding, and today we have enough resources, or rather adequate resources. The government support us at a call of just small time, and then we get what we want and we move in. That really help us in actually confronting the disasters so far that really come up when I came into office.
Ilesu, you should come in here. Some of these things I know you're already aware of them. So let's take these issues one by one.
Yes, the DG, sir. Let me start from the 2018 flood intervention by your agency, which was adjudged one of the best. Tell us, DG, what did you do to have gone this far?
Well, like I said, structurally and policy-wise, we have everything in place. What I did to ensure that we make the structure works, the policies, books, brought them out, we dust them off, and then make sure that we implement them. The main policy document that guides our operation is National Disaster Response Plan. It gives clearly step-by-step approach to prepare, to mitigate, and respond to a disaster. When we came, around February or March of 2018, the flood outlook was released, and relevant information by NIMET and NISA was done. We quickly swung into action. We sensitized the people. We enlightened them, those that are in the flood-prone areas. We now approach the DRUs, that is Disaster Response Unit. There are 70 military formations that are dedicated for disaster response of the kind of 2018. We sensitized them, we visited all of them, get them ready, because the outlook clearly said there will be flood disaster in 2018. Having done that internally, we called all the stakeholders. We had workshops. We enlightened ourselves. We also went ahead to assess the preparedness of every stakeholder, including the State Emergency Management Agency. At a point when it became very critical, we summoned an emergency meeting to review with all stakeholders, including the military, the international organizations, the Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of all the stakeholders were called upon. We sat down together. We reviewed the situation. We set up a committee, 5 committees, to go around all the 14 identified states and locations to ensure that to assess their preparedness, to identify the high-level ground for evacuation purposes, which we did successfully. Having done that, it became imminent at that time that we must call disaster emergency, the national emergency. We approached Mr. President, we briefed him properly, and he gave NEMA mandate as provided in the relevant policy, the powers and delegated authority to declare national emergency, which we did in September 2018. We move in, we evacuate successfully over 90% of the affected people with the military, with the specifically naval commands within those areas. We use their boats and ships and move out people. Also, the Air Force was made ready with their medical personnel, medical facilities. All their assets were made at our disposal to respond, which we use effectively, and we save a lot of lives. The levels at that time, I can't remember the level in meters, but was more than that of 2012. But the devastation, when you compare it with 2012, for example, 7.7 million people were displaced in 2012. Only 2.78 million were displaced in 2018. So preparation, good preparation, effective response, doing the right thing clearly shows that time could save lives and properties.
So what are you doing differently now for this year? I know you have also said that NEMA has an effective management plan, especially for the victims. What is in place for 2019? Because yes, like he said, you received a lot of accolades for 2018. And this year we're seeing more people getting displaced, more people being victims of this flood.
Well, first of all, there is clear distinction from last year from this year. Last year was river flooding. River flooding by its nature is more devastating.
And it's instantaneous.
It's an instantaneous. Whereas this is mostly flash floods. It comes in 2 hours, 3 hours, it grows up, and then after less than 24 hours, it's drained off. So the consequences, you can never compare the consequences. Even the number of people displaced this year are quite not comparable with, I think we are talking as at October, 130,000.
Yes.
As against 2.78 million. So, but the outcry is there, but this reality is the situation was not as bad as 2018.
Still, in spite of the accolades of the 2018, the way NEMA handled the 2018 issue, well, it looks like there are still fallouts from the 2018. The farmers that were affected, the or generally the other victims. We understand the federal government gave NEMA 33 billion naira to settle these farmers, to give them farm inputs, fertilizers, and what have you. But there are allegations that this supply of all these inputs came rather too late. We understand you started that distribution in September 2019, and most of the farmers had not even gotten it when you directed that it should stop, because we understand you understood there were some discrepancies in the methods of the distribution. Tell us what is really going on.
Well, actually, that is not the case. The reality, we started actually in May. The approval came in March. We started distribution in May. Don't forget the logistic requirement to move in thousands of tons of seeds and fertilizers. So it took us about 6 weeks to commence distribution. Of course, as at that time, the riverine areas, or rather the far east and the far west, the seasons are normally in batches. It comes at the beginning, maybe February, March, so we targeted the subsequent season in June, July. That's when we distributed. So we took advantage of the segregation, of seasonal segregation in the south, whereas the north, that is when it started. I think there was no any fallout as regard to that. So this is how it happened. But however, when the expert observed that at a certain point, not the seed was supplied all the seed were supplied, on time. But the fertilizer distribution, this is how we planned to do it, and this is how we executed it. We first give you the seeds and herbicides, then and sprayers. But subsequently, we now give you the pesticide and fertilizer after the seed might have germinated and grow to a level that they require fertilizers. So this is how we did. There was no lag in it. Of course, at the last point when we observed that the use of fertilizer will not yield any result, then we stop it. However,
so that's why you suspended it.
That is why we suspended it. However, there are dry season farming which we targeted. We have already set up all machineries to now use the remaining items for the on the approval of Mr. President. We will now commence the distribution, continue the distribution, which all items will be used for dry season farming. This is the plan.
So how many states have benefited from this?
Yes, we have two categories of response, or rather intervention. There is 2018, those that were affected by 2018 flood, and there are those that were affected by conflict, communal class. Everybody is aware that some areas, particularly in the central part of the country, there were clashes whereby people abandoned their farmlands. So there are 14 states that were affected by flood in 2018, and there are 7 states that were affected by conflict. So altogether, 3 of them are common. That is Adamawa, Taraba, and Benue were common. They are common in both conflict and also flood disasters. So altogether 18 states. If you remove the 3 common, we have 15 states.
NISA predicted 30 states, to experience a severe flood disaster. Tell us, how many states have so far been hit?
Exactly 30.
Out of the 30?
Out of the 30.
And how have you been able to contain them and support the victims?
Well, of course, all the states were sensitized properly. Those that really listened to the warnings moved out, but some that did not listen to the warning were cut off, and that is why there was serious outcry. So the agency responded. But one other thing we must know is most of the states has multiple incidences. Some had incidences in June, they had it in August and also in September. So no state that we have not responded, looking at when it happened and how it happened. But there are still some that are processing some relief items that happened just now. They may enjoy it for the second or the third time.
Okay, and okay, go ahead.
How many states were worst hit among the 30 states that were affected?
Well, like I told you, I must be frank with Nigerians. Most of these disasters are considered to be major disasters, and some of them were even minor disasters. There are disasters that fall within a category that state government must handle. However, because of weak capacity and lack of funding of the structures in the state, NEMA is seen to be responding to almost all the disasters. Sometimes we get even overstretched. You find out that we have 16 offices, 15 offices, both zonal operational offices and territorial offices, like the case of Kano and Lagos. So these are some of the constraints we have. We get overstretched sometimes, but we respond to almost all the states.
And NISA just recently also predicted that states within the Kogi downstream, like Edo, Bayelsa, Anambra, will still be hit, and they should be placed, especially those by the river Niger bank, should be placed on red alert. Now, is that a kind of joint-based assessment for emergency response action?
Well, we must understand that disaster management is multi-sectoral, multi-agency, and therefore requires joint response. All what we do, NEMA does not do it alone. We respond as a team with all relevant stakeholders.
You just happen to be the lead agency.
We are just simply, not the lead agency, the coordinator. We coordinate the responses. We coordinate the preparedness, we coordinate the mitigation efforts, we coordinate the recovery operations where necessary. So this is how we operate. We operate as a team.
You know why I asked that now? They said more floods are coming. For these states to be prepared, if they're being placed on red alert, what is NEMA doing in terms of collaboration to ensure that we don't record more losses?
The mandate to declare red alert, yellow or orange, lies with NEMA. So we know there was an information released by NISA and NIMET, a possible continuation of the rain, but to the best of our assessment, it's not a dangerous situation. Let people not be panicked. The reality is within the level that the arrangement of ground can contain it.
Are you saying NIMET went ahead to make those announcements without consultation with NEMA?
I am not sure if they did.
They didn't consult NEMA?
No, I am not sure if they did declare red alert.
Oh, I see, I see. Yes. Now, let's now look at other issues. Before now, NEMA was under the Vice President's office. And with the creation of the new Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, NEMA naturally falls under that ministry. How has that bureaucratic change, or do we say, how is it going to make NEMA more effective? Or is it going to retard NEMA's activities?
Well, that a proper statement has been made by higher authority. I stand by it. The Office of the Vice President made a statement, the Office of the SGF made a statement, and also the President made pronouncement. So I stand by those pronouncements.
What are those pronouncements?
The pronouncements are very clear to all that the reporting line of the agency is through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development.
So how do you now operate? I mean, if before now you are under the Vice President, let us know.
We just go by the instructions.
Okay, so let me take you back to what you mentioned earlier concerning funding. I know you said the taxes, the burden is too much for NEMA. Now, with this ministry on board, the humanitarian ministry, how much impact would this have now? Because there are funds released for the ministry.
Well, the fund being released to NEMA was not to the ministry, it's to NEMA. All agencies receive their statutory funding from TSA. They have their TSA account. So it's not any agency that works through any ministry. They are
they're independent.
Yes, not independent per se. Operationally, the day-to-day activities of the ministries and the funding goes directly to the agencies, not only NEMA.
Okay, but are you also thinking of international intervention in terms of humanitarian disaster?
Well, there are also some interventions that of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia intervene in the northeast. So it's in kind, not in fund. There are also capacity building funding.
When you say in kind, sorry, what do you mean?
What I mean in kind is they bought the items in Nigeria and NEMA distribute the items. So that's what I mean by in kind. So it's not the money given. They bought the items, gave NEMA to distribute. They took it to the warehouse of NEMA and we distribute. Such kind of support we got them from international community too. Yes.
Yes, sir. Maybe I'll still go back to the 2019 flood intervention. Sir, what are some of the strategies put in place, as a preventive measure for this 2019 flood intervention?
I will seize this opportunity to make certain things very clear. When I came into office in April 2017, the focus of the then administration was mainly on relief materials distribution. Efforts on preparedness and mitigation was downplayed due to so many reasons. One of them was political issues. Disaster management was more or less politicized. Every politician who has the means can approach NEMA and get materials and distribute. This is a very serious matter I consider, which I now took a different position. We put more efforts now in preparing the agency to preparedness, to mitigations, to development of structures such that the effect of disasters will be drastically reduced. Thereby, the issue of relief will be minimal. The requirement of relief will be minimal. This is a very difficult task. The psyche change of people to what they are used to a new things, no matter how good it is not an easy task. And it's really working hard on us, but by the support of Mr. President, we will achieve what we want.
But you know, BG, every year we see this happen. We see people build their house on floodplain areas. We see blocked drains. These disasters occur every year. Now, is it a problem of the people not, responding to the sensitization, or is it a problem of people, who don't want to leave their environment? Because I know there's a challenge of people not wanting to leave where they're used to. What could be, is there a possibility of a lasting solution to this kind of disasters? Because we're talking about it this time of the year. I'm not going to be surprised if we're talking about it again next year.
It is possible, but a very difficult task. The social and moral decadence within our system is taking a very large toll in our activities. Poor waste management is a major issue. Failure of governments to enforce urban development policies, building codes, allowing people to build in floodplain areas is a major issue. But it must be put on record that is purely the responsibility of the states. The federal government has no right whatsoever to go into a state, stop waste disposal anyhow, to enforce building codes and all what have you. However, we are relating with the state governments. We try to convince them through several means that is available to the government to ensure that this scenario is changed completely. But I must tell you, it's not a small task, but the government is putting all it has to ensure that the state governments take up their responsibility. You could recall Mr. President's directives, or rather commendation on NEMA, also calling the state governments and the local governments to take their responsibility so that disaster management could be effective and efficient as it's supposed to be.
Well, closely related to the issue of mitigation and prevention that you mentioned is the adequate early warning system. Does NEMA has that in place now?
The early warning system is primitive, is the physical one, the radio one. But what we are trying to now build is satellite surveillance system to inform us much earlier so that we could move whatever means we could use to ensure that people are well enlightened, people are informed, and then where necessary enforce their evacuation.
Yes.
When will that be?
It is a process. We have started the process and we're on it.
Yes, sir. Having supported farmers affected by the 2018 flood disaster, another set of farmers are also in 2019. Is it okay to say that this will, of course, be a threat to food security in the country?
It's a sad incident, but I must tell you, what we have this year in terms of loss, you can never compare it with what we had in 2019. It's a loss, but it's a minor loss that I think we can contain. Even the state government can handle it. They have been doing their best in terms of support of farmers, the state governments, and they will do that. Where necessary, if they need our support, federal government through NEMA will respond to their outcry.
I know Anambra.
So there will be no need to go into the strategic food reserve.
It's already going on. Minister of Agriculture, to the best of my privilege to know, they are working on that, building our strategic reserve.
I know Anambra SEMA has already started distributing seedlings and fertilizers, but is it going to extend? Like, what kind of synergy is NEMA having with the state government?
I must tell you that Anambra was the first state to start and complete. I think they've completed their distribution well before July.
Okay.
Of the seeds, and then the fertilizer went on and it was completed much earlier. I think maybe in August or so.
So how many states have done that now?
All the affected states did it, and they have completed, and they are back at the headquarters. We are now assessing all the reports submitted. We are now analyzing them, and we'll come out with a position in due course.
In terms of data collection, for some of these farmers, because I, read somewhere that there were some challenges. Some farmers who were not affected by the losses were also, intending to be part of this initiative. Now, in terms of data collection, how does NEMA go about it to ensure that it's really those who are affected that are going to benefit?
Okay, during the response period of 2018 flood, we already pick our data. We already take inventory of the personnel. What we did when we come to distribution is to authenticate the people. So those that were not affected rush in. Those politically influenced people also rush in with their political gimmicks that they need this material. Unfortunately, it was too late for them. We only supplied to those that were truly affected by the 2018 flood disaster. So anybody that didn't get, he was not captured as an affected person that time.
Yes, sir. At this point in time in November, of course, we shouldn't be talking about prevention or mitigation. What we should be talking about is provision of relief materials to these affected victims. How far have you gone, even though you have said you want to maybe deviate from relief materials to another thing differently?
For your information, we have started preparing for next year, even before NAMET and NISA. That is a fact on ground. Of course, we are analyzing our previous work so that we enrich our database, we get the right statistics, we correct where there are errors or gaps. This also is going hand in hand with our preparation next year.
What is in place in terms of these preparations?
The preparation is, we had experience of what happened last year. We monitor and evaluate our response. There are gaps. For example, logistic gaps. We had serious logistic issues. We now have to plan what do we do next to avert such kind of situations. So these are a review of the previous situation, and then to prepare us for next year and subsequent years in a better form.
I'm glad you mentioned logistics. Now, the outcry for some people when we get to see them displaced or, being affected, a lot of people will say, okay, it's taken NEMA quite some time to come and respond. I want you to clear the air on this. What does NEMA put in place before they just respond so that people understand the essence of the little delay?
Okay. First of all, we must understand disasters are of different category, disasters are of different magnitude. So where disasters registers highly, displaced people, maybe they are outside, they don't have anything to do. Of course, NEMA moves in under 48 hours. Where the people are maybe in their houses, it was a flash flood, the rainfall, and then everything is recovery efforts are not so tedious. We assess, we take count of those and prepare and then move in. That takes up to a week or a little more.
Okay, so there's no cause for alarm.
So it depends on the magnitude.
It depends on the magnitude, the type, and the consequences thereafter.
Now let's go back to the internal administration of NEMA that you met. You told us how you have energized the structure. You are suggesting some improvement in remuneration. You are addressing the inadequacies and the structural defects. Let's start with the remuneration. Is it that your staff, the staff of NEPA, will be taken out of the civil service structure? Or what are you proposing?
In the first place, I think they are not meant to be in civil service structure because of the nature of the work. If there is a collapsed building, the staff can be there for days. He cannot leave the site for extra works, extra hours. Where there is arms tight, they are there so that any injured person will pick him up to make sure we coordinate very well. So by the rules, to the best of my knowledge, wherever two personnel are working, they need to be at the same level with their partners. So this is being looked into. So that is why the remuneration of
Co-partners, in this case, you are talking of the armed forces.
Supposing the co-partner, if it is armed forces, if the health workers, they have a different package. If it is paramilitary, they have a different. We work with civil defense, we work with federal safety. We coordinate, we lead their operations wherever we are. So obviously, that is not meant to be under civil service, to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, talking about some of these strategies put in place in the agency to improve activities of the workers there. So before now, you know, when there is a disaster, and even maybe when a NEMA, you know, made distribution, maybe the next day you still hear, you know, an outcry from some of these victims that this material could not reach them. But today the story is different. What did you do? Because I was privileged to have covered some of the distribution, and from what the people are saying, is actually encouraging. So what did you do to stop this?
To avoid diversions.
Yes. Like I said, all we do, we try to implement the established policy, whether national or international. When I came, the distribution pattern is they use Kudu, I don't know, they count it, but what the World Food Agency, United Nations, gives certain amount. What other partners were given, for example, international partners, they give 46 kilograms of food, different food items to a group of 6, that is a family of 6. I said no, and then the world standard is around 80 kilograms. I said no, we should uplift it. We'll give from 50 to 60 kilograms, depending on the situation, to a particular family or household, as we call it. So that changed the pattern. Secondly, one thing that is so good to us is we don't ask people to queue. We take the food items door to door where they are, because in a more dignified manner, as enshrined in the relevant section of the United Nations Charter. So we consider that. So also, we ensure that once an officer signs for items, he must bring us a proof that where the people, the beneficiaries, leaders, sign, count the number of items, sign that yes, these are the items brought to this camp or to this community. In his report, he must attach that to show that yes, and also it must be done in the presence of all other stakeholders possible. SEMA must be there, like the agri intervention, the agri ADP, state government's representative must be there, the international body, if they are available around, the Red Cross also must be there, the leaders of the community, sometimes even the traditional rulers has to be there. So it is done in the presence of all. So you reduce the possibility of connivance because so many people are involved. So this is how we do it today.
As we move on now, there may have been some areas that you, because of the act establishing NEMA, that you may be thinking that should be amended in terms of regulation or the legal framework. What are those areas?
Well, in reality, this act was established in 1999. Some part of it outlived its usefulness. Also, there are other established laws which really set precedents, or rather set in later than the previous ones. So obviously, you cannot use those aspects. For example, there are where the approval limit of the DG is provided in NEMA Act. Having promulgated the BPP Act, that supersedes that. Obviously, we cannot use that particular section of the law. We have to use the later one, that is for BPP, which does not give us room to respond quickly. So there are also issue of threshold which limits how much the DG NEMA will spend, even in a situation where you need to spend to save lives and properties. So these are some of the constraints that I can recall for now. that needs to be looked into.
So what are you doing about that? Have you approached the National Assembly or the relevant committees oversight in NEMA?
That has been done even before I come. We are following it up to the logical conclusion.
That reminds me very quickly. Early 2018, you had brushes with the National Assembly. Give us a little insight to what really happened. There were several committees calling on you. Some were saying you are not responding to their summons. What really happened, even though it's in the past? But let us talk about them for the benefit of benefiting from this.
There was no case of non-responsive to the summons. There was not a single case. Of course, I am the DG of National Emergency Management Office. There are emergency situations where I need to respond quickly, personally, and if they call, we write them to tell them that yes, one is engaged on very special, they cannot go, but it's left for the other person to accept or not to accept. But in reality, we respect every institution in this country, especially the legislative arm of government is a very important element in democratic setting. So there wasn't any case of refusal to respond to a summons. However, as I explained earlier on, we changed the pattern at which people do things. We felt things were wrongly done and it must be corrected, and we stand our feet. Of course, that comes with consequences. I have no regret. I stand by the law, I stand by the rules, I stand by the truth, and nothing can change me here.
So far, we're in the Ninth Assembly. How will you describe the relationship?
I think the concept of both assemblies are different. These are very thorough people. They respect the law too. They promulgated the law in a very passion that everybody understands. You explain, they understand. They are very brilliant and very straightforward and nice people to work with. However, we took time to explain and understand ourselves as it is obtainable in any group or working people.
So what other challenges will you say exists in your disaster management approach in Nigeria that may not necessarily demand a legislative action? May have to allow you maybe to revert to the executive or even to the judiciary?
I think the issue is mainly is not an issue of executive or any other related matter like this. What is also of concern or difficult to operate, the civil service bureaucracy, we found ourselves we must key into it as it is today. I think it's not meant for disaster management activities. Disaster management is a very serious business that requires quick and spontaneous actions and must be free of serious bureaucratic process. This I must say, and this is what is a major constraint that affects our operations.
What would you say to Nigerians in terms of their attitude when it comes to NEMA intervening for disasters? What is that one thing you want to see people change so that we can have a smooth, effective response in future?
One thing I can say, the political class, highly level, may not be happy with the present administration because of being thorough, being insistent to do the right thing in the right way. But I want to assure you, the feedback I have, which you have too, the common man is happy with NEMA operation today. And this is my happiness. This is my joy. NEMA is for the sake of the distress. And we must work hard to ensure that the distress get the best from us, get quick response from us as much as we can.
You were appointed in April 2017. You did tell us earlier in the beginning of the program that you inherited just 4.6 million naira in the coffers of NEMA and about 2.5 billion deficit, or what did you call it? So what is it now?
I must say all leakages has been blocked, all excesses to the best of our ability has been stopped. To God Almighty, all our praises goes. And I can't remember what we have, but I know we are ready to face disaster that will require us investing 10 billion naira today. If any disaster comes in today, we don't pray for it. NEMA is capable to put in 10 billion naira today. Not to say only. Okay. Like I said, we are trying to change our focus from relief material distribution only to what the United Nations emphasized today, disaster risk reduction, under the Sendai framework principle. This is capital intensive. The savings will go in building structures, facilities to ensure that we respond to disaster in more efficient and effective manner, and in a way that it is reduced, the risk is reduced, thereby the aspect of relief will be reduced to the lowest minimum.
As a layman, there's something I've observed. When we notice disasters in other climes, let's say Haiti, for example, we find, or rather found, different international organizations, and even big countries like the United States, countries in Europe, moving very quickly to support. But I've never seen that happen within this country. What is the reason for that, and what are you doing to change it?
I think it's not correct. In 2018, we have support of all international communities. The United Nations deployed 11 staffs into our office. We worked all around the clock together. The EU support our operations with €1 million, and all other that I cannot recall.
So maybe it was Eliasu's fault, he didn't tell us.
No, he did tell us. It's Elias who was there when we held a press conference in the European Union office with His Excellency, the Commissioner there. He was also in our office. All the movement with the United Nations personnel were done along with him, so he knows that they were deployed. We had the support of the international community.
So to round off, when will the NEMA staff be out of the civil service structure?
I think that I cannot answer. I must be frank with you, but I know in the soonest possible time, government
in this 2020, that will be
it's a very difficult. You know, today the push to demand is high. These resources are scarce, so all things must be balanced up to get things done.
Are you satisfied with the manpower involved?
No, we are close to 800 people. Our operations, sometimes when it gets so serious, we get overstretched.
Yes, sir. Let me still come back to the 2019 flood intervention. The agency sometime had a meeting with dam owners on the need to, know when to release water. And in November, today in November, the dams are yet to release water. What magic did you do?
Well, I think there's a natural phenomena, and also the training. The capacity of the operators of the of the dams have been enhanced. They know when to release and when not to release, using the available data of control. I think it's all about planning. It's all about good implementations of the plans.
What of the Lagdo Dam? At one point there were fears that they could release any time. Is it that now you have very strategic communication between the authorities in Nigeria and the authorities in Cameroon?
Well, I don't communicate with Lagdo Dam. NISA does that, but I can tell you that there is proper communication between them, and they also communicate to us almost on daily, weekly or fortnight basis. So communications gap has been reduced, operational inadequacies has been reduced, and then capacity has been built. That, I believe, was behind all the success we have.
Malam Mustafa Maihaja, Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, thank you so much for coming. Our time is up, and if there is any need, of course, because disaster is instantaneous, we will call you, certainly.
It's my pleasure having you today, and I thank viewers for listening to us. Thank you very much.
Well, our panelist, Ilyasu Ali Yakubu, thank you so much for coming on the platform.
Thank
this
you,
is your first time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Ruth Aguele, she's been very regular. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is Platform, and our guests, Mustafa Maihaja, Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, has in the last